All right, well, yesterday we started talking about this concept, which is the talking point for the left of politics in New Zealand at the moment. What is called the imported culture wars. And what is the imported culture wars? Anything the left wing don't like is an imported culture war. It is a phrase so popular in politics at the moment that we even have Chris Bishop and the Prime Minister, Chris Luxon, using it. And it really is a way for the left and the LGBTQIA plus whatever community to say we are sacred cows and you cannot touch us. One of those, most often now accused of importing the culture wars, is Winston Peters, the leader of New Zealand First. And he joins us to talk about this new catch cry in New Zealand politics. He joins us on the line now. Good to see you again, Mr. Peters.
Good morning.
Have you noticed how popular this phrase is amongst your political opponents at the moment? Imported culture war?
Well, one could say it's surprisingly unsurprising. That's how Marxism works. You pick the word, the language, you pick the image, and you just press it no matter what the truth is. You just keep on saying it. And so the number of people listed as using that phrase, from Chloe Swarbrick, the whole lot, including Benjamin Doyle, this imposter in Parliament, are you all using the same language? And then, sadly, it's crept into some parties supposedly in the middle or on the right. Imported culture wars. No, I didn't start the problem down at the Invercargill Invercargill swimming pool, where women and girls were being shocked by men walking into their toilet. I didn't start. That's a long time, 5 years ago. I didn't start that. I didn't start all the other issues where people started to write to me saying I'm disgusted with what's going on. And those people that came to me from the women's sports who said, look, this is not fair. Biological men have got enormous advantage over us. All those things were happening. And so we made a stand a long, long time ago. It just happens to be the coincidence of a parallel court case in the UK, whereupon they shouted out, hang on, you're just following, you're engaging in imported culture wars. And the answer is, no. Our Associate Minister of Police put out, and Health, put out a very clear statement, Casey Costello, when she said, you'll no longer go on talking about pregnant people, you'll be talking about pregnant women. Now, this is just plain common sense, but the shattering thing of this crowd on the left and with their own standards and their own morality and their own language is that they can't bear to be confronted with the truth.
All right. I'm sure Radio New Zealand and Corin Dan would repeat the accusation that you have imported a culture war. Have you had any communication with the Prime Minister or anyone else about that? I thought, given our history, Mr. Peters, rather mild exchange with Corin Dan last week.
Now, isn't it great when you say that? Because the fact is, you can have blazing rows with people and still understand them and be friends. And I've got a few people in the press gallery who are testimony to that. And the fact is, they're not always being wrong. Here's the point, though. I was brassed off to come onto a program where instead of interviewing me about what we were doing, they ran Keir Starmer, the legislation that led to the court that led to his change of mind, and Keir Starmer's past where he was supporting that. Now, what on earth has it got to do with me in New Zealand? That's when I realised this was the setup, this was the jack-up. And he claimed to be the devil's advocate. Excuse you, no, not. You're a journalist. You're not the devil's advocate. Your job is to ask all the questions, get to the truth. But not to be the devil's advocate, or dare I say the devil, in this case being the Greens and the Party Maori, and put their side of the argument. Your job is to do your job professionally.
All right. You did suggest during that interview that maybe the government might look at the funding of Radio New Zealand. Was that serious?
Well, this is amazing. I heard and saw Willie Jackson in a Jack Tame interview say something similar. I didn't hear the whole world collapse and Fremont or Chris Hipkins saying, oh, this is awful. He should not be saying that. He was, of course, the Prime Minister at the time that was saying that. Remember that?
Yep, that's
right. He
right.
was the Prime Minister at the time, and he didn't say a darn thing. Here's the point. Everybody's accountable. RNZ and TVNZ are accountable. there's a mass amount of money going into RNZ. I think it's about $63 million of advertising, but they don't advertise. So what on earth are they spending the money on?
Yeah, well, maybe you need some experienced board appointments, because I noticed that there are some positions coming up on the board of Radio New Zealand, and I thought I might have the requisite experience, to be honest. Wouldn't that be interesting? I also saw you last week or a week or so ago criticising the spin-off, which is one of the absolute cheerleaders of the imported culture wars narrative. I noticed you were doing that online basically 2 days after the government that you're part of had just given them $680,000 in grants from New Zealand On Air that basically have saved that business from going under.
Hang on, I understood, and I'm sure you understood, that to be a carryover of arrangements from the previous government. You see what I mean?
Well, that announcement was made just 3 weeks ago, Mr. Peters.
Yes, I know. But when I saw that, and I saw your criticism immediately, within a matter of minutes, and I thought I'll go and do a bit of check on this. To the best of my knowledge, this is part of the previous government's forward expenditure.
Yeah. All right. So you say it's not. Yep.
Can we find out about that? Because that's, I'm busy as anything, but I thought I'd go and find out. I've just seen Sean Plunkett criticise us, and I thought, better check it out. Now, I hope if I'm right, you'll correct that, will you?
Yeah, if you are right. But no, my understanding that the grants were made in November last year, which would be some 6 months after the government took office.
That was the carryover from the previous administration.
All right.
That's what I understand. Look, we had blazing rows when I was in government. Robinson came down and he wanted to support the media, and I said, you have got to be joking. For the initial COVID months, we agreed. But now you want a long-term program, and let me tell you, everybody's going to scream out that we are corrupt, that we are buying the media off, that we are guilty of corruption, and we will not support it. Whereupon he went around the press gallery telling, look, we'll give you the money, but Winston Peters is the problem. He's obstructing us. So that's why I got upset when you thought I was funding.
Okay, all right. But you say not important. Okay, but let's get back. You say this imported culture war thing is just a Marxist way to shut down critics of their wacky ideas.
Yeah, of course it is. We've had women come into Parliament with petitions on this matter. And are they saying that they've imported people? No, they're not. They're all New Zealanders. These people will always use the script because they're globalists, and the very accusation they make is their sin. They are the ones that import ideas. We're the ones that are home-born philosophers in New Zealand. That's why we call our party New Zealand First. They're globalists. We're not.
All right. You mentioned Benjamin Doyle earlier on. I've noted, and we were going to cover this tomorrow, but as I've got you here now, I'll ask you about it. He has put out a video because he is, believe it or not, the education spokesperson for the Green Party. He's put out a statement asking supporters in the communities that he purports to represent to make submissions on the relationship and sexuality education framework that's being worked on by the government at the moment. And he's urging people to suggest the government not abandon issues around transgenderism and gayness when it teaches school children. Do you think he's an appropriate person to be making that sort of statement or to be leading advocacy on those issues?
No, this is breathtakingly disgusting that he should still be there in that position, given those posts he put up, given the weak and hopeless defence that Chloe Swarbrick tried to put up in his defence. I noticed that Mara Badavs went pretty quiet because sometimes in the Maori world there's a certain honesty in there. But no, there's Chloe trying to defend the indefensible. It is simply disgusting. And the next thing we've got to ask is ourselves, and you're probably going to ask quicker than I am, what are those who should be in the survey and purvey of standards in this country doing about this sort of thing and those posts and the position that he's in?
Okay. Any comment on Tory Whanau pulling out of the Mayoralty? She's going to stand in the Maori ward and she's endorsing Andrew Little.
Well, and it's so transparent. I just watched all the media, all on target this morning, running her line. Andrew Little says that she told him a number of days ago, maybe a week ago, of her intention. She said she was thinking about it a month and 2 months ago, but didn't stop her going out and launching that program yesterday that's going to be a massive shutdown for Wellington businesses. Make no bones about it. The Wellington city has been crushed with planning ideas that are foreign to a thriving city, so to speak. And I feel sorry for those business people because the very thing they need, people to come and shop at their place, the planners are doing their utmost, backed by councillors and backed by, this case, the mayor, doing their best to shut their operations down. Who would start a business downtown in Wellington today?
Yeah. All right, Mr. Peters, we've established you're saying it's not an imported culture war. That's just the way that Marxists cut things down. Are you going to ask Chris Bishop and Chris Luxon to stop calling it an imported culture war?
Well, they'll have to face the consequences of their own thinking, won't they? See, that's the great thing about democracy and freedom. You're asking me to get into a dialogue of dispute with them, and the answer is no. Gentlemen, read the room. Read the room. The mass majority of New Zealanders are disgusted by this.
I thank you very much indeed for your time this morning, and I'm happy to note that you can't pull our funding because we don't get it from the taxpayer. We will talk again soon. That is the leader of New Zealand First, the Deputy Prime Minister for just a wee while yet, and the Foreign Minister, Winston